My grandfather was very, very strict. He had almost killed his son. He had killed my father because of the music. You cannot make any mistake if you are my son. My grandfather had, thrown him in the well.
Wow.
So he used to say, thank God I'm not like, your grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
Perspective's a powerful thing. Like even if you felt like something was unfair, your father, he didn't push you in a well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome, guys. Thanks for coming over to my studio.
Thanks.
Apartment.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
For having us in your lovely studio, sir. Very nice to be here.
The instruments you're playing, some folks might not be familiar with. I didn't know. I mean, I think a lot of people know the sitar, right?
Yeah.
And the tabla, Zach. Yeah. See, I didn't know that. Zach, you were looking to learn tabla, and that's how you guys met.
Kind of, yeah. So I started as a drum set student. At the age of 10, I got introduced to playing drum set. And then when I was 15, I was exposed to tabla, just pretty randomly, actually, and connected with my first teacher, Jeffrey Rogers. So he's an American that went and studied in India under a great tabla player named Allah Raka, who's the father of one of the greatest tabla players of all time currently, Zakir Hussain. And so I started studying with Jeffrey when I was 15, going over there to his house in Longmont, actually, and starting to learn the vocabulary of tabla. Tabla is an interesting instrument. Actually, Indian classical music in general is an interesting system because nothing is ever written down. It's all verbal tradition. So every way that you stroke or play this drum has a corresponding syllable to it. For example, if I play this, the word for that is na. That's tun. So all of the compositions passed down from guru to disciple are taught verbally. So for example, I might learn a composition, dati dagena datarigita dati dagatinakena dati takena datarigita dati dagadinagena. That's a particular composition which comes from a particular school of tabla in Delhi.
That's like more intuitive than say like I want you to play an A chord and then a B chord, right? It's like very verbal, like you can feel it maybe when somebody's...
Exactly. It's a felt experience and it's a spoken experience. And oftentimes, if you go to see a classical Indian concert, it's possible that the instrument that the musicians have never even met each other, that they might not have even discussed what they're going to play with each other. Just simply by that intuition, they can sense how to play.
Is there something special about improvisation where you don't know what you're going to play and you're kind of...
Yeah. Free. You are free. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. But have to be in a system. System means in a rhythmical pattern. You know. That's all. I can do anything. I can go anywhere from any beat to any beat.
Could you tell me a little bit about how you started playing sitar and got into music?
It's in my blood, you know, my father, grandfather, you know. I'm the 5th generation playing just music. My children's playing music now. The musician of the age of my father, you know, they used to tell stories about my father, you know, some of his friend, musician friend, how he used to practice, you know. As I grown up, you know, the people used to tell me, oh, we know your father, you know, he had to struggle hard, he never stopped playing the practice, you know. Inspired me also, you know. My father had a long time, how you call this, sickness, TB, you know TB.
Tuberculosis?
TB?
Yeah, TB, I think tuberculosis.
Yeah. At that time was, you know, it was dangerous like cancer. That was the cancer, you know, TB. Oh, you have a TB, you know. So people used to, you know, avoid you, you know. So like that, you know. So, you know, but he never stopped doing the practice. He was always doing.
Where were you at this time?
I was in India.
You grew up in India?
Yeah. So my father was also, he was in India.
Started playing music because your dad was playing it?
Yeah, I used to watch my father's students, you know, those who used to come learning for a lesson. Those days was different, you know. The student used to stay in the house with teacher, you know, take a training. Years, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Just training, under training for 5-10 years. Just like that, you know. So that period I have seen my father's life, you know. And so I used to watch them. They, you know, they used to wake up in the morning and sit with the practice. And then, you know, I go and join them with the sitar. What they were doing, I was doing, you know. So slowly. I mean, they can play whatever they had learned, and I was just doing by listening.
How many hours a day or whatever do you think you were practicing?
Oh, at least I did 6-7 hours. Yeah, not continuously, you know, like 2.5 hours I just did. Then, you know, you have to eat also, you have to go to bathroom also, you know, for drinking water or something like that. Then come back and then again 2-3 hours. Then again go like that.
There must be so few people in different creative fields that become like a master of a craft because if you put that much time into it. I've heard of like guitarists from rock bands playing like all day when they're a teenager, and there's this like exponential growth, it seems like, through that practice that only a very small part of the population is going to be able to achieve. It's just crazy how much of your life maybe that you've put fingers to strings.
To become a professionalist, you know, you have to be perfect, you know. I was doing radio station in India. Those days we had a children's program every Sunday. Every Sunday for 1 and 2 hours, Children sitting like how we are sitting, the children's there. So there's anchor, That's how I started, I used to get those days quarter from the All India Radio. Just a quarter,
Starving artist.
Yeah. So, that was, they used to pay to the kids,
How old were you at this point?
Maybe 15 years old. 15.
And you started playing at about at what age did you start playing?
10.
10?
10.
Okay. When did you come to the U.S.?
Actually, I came here in 2000.
2000.
Yeah. Then I went back after 3-4 years. Then again came in 2005.
Okay. Both times to Colorado, or?
Yeah. Colorado.
And what brought you here?
I don't know.
You don't?
It just happened.
Huh.
Yeah. It just happened. I never thought of coming here. Because I already have seen so many countries, I lived there, so many months, years, There were people who wanted to bring me here. They had just started a music school, The owner was Indian owner.
Of the music school?
Yeah. But the guy who was looking after for the school, he was from Pakistan. So they wanted to have a teacher from India. And they were not good enough to teach in the school. They were certain, they knew only a few things to teach, but you cannot make a fool people, for a long time. So they needed teacher. So the Pakistani man said, well, okay, I'll just go in India and find a teacher. So they brought me, and I started teaching there for 2-3 years. Then they brought me here in Boulder. Yeah. So Boulder was the nicest place for me. Very nice. I did a lot of things there, a lot of concerts, a lot of teaching, here and there, everywhere. So my career actually started from Boulder.
You've been teaching and playing music since you got here?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. From Boulder, I went everywhere. The guy who was helping me, Thai Burho, also tabla player, he was also very, very good tabla player.
Better than Zach?
Huh?
Is he better than Zach?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for this is the climax of your musical career.
Yeah.
Here in my studio apartment.
1970s, 70s, 80s period was different. Lot of hippies, they were involved with the music, so many Indian things, meditation, yoga, music.
Like in the 70s, do you think there was a more of an explosion or like interest in Eastern culture and music?
Yes, I miss that.
And maybe there's not that interest as much today, or how would you describe it?
No. Those days, I had a lot of students, my father, not me, but I was also teaching my father's students because I was the only there, father and me. So, lots of people became good player those days. But now, very few people. America was the reason when I came here. I thought, oh wow, I'm going to America, I'm going to have the same time which I had in 70s or 80s, But the time was totally gone. But, when I lived in Boulder, my beginning was fantastic here. I had 30, 40 students those days, just in Boulder or surrounding, They were coming to, and I used to have a special class, practice class.
When was this?
Before 2005.
So there was kind of more
because
interest?
I had to leave the country those days. I had to go back. When I got back here, then everything was finished. This is really something here.
Yeah.
Once you are gone, nobody knows you. Wow. Yeah.
Is there hope? Is there anything new on the front when it comes to, what would you call it, Eastern type of music, or what would be a good term, like that you see happening today?
It's happening, but very rare.
Okay.
Rare.
We'll do our part.
Yeah, you cannot live on the students nowadays, But before, you were just depending on the students, Those days can survive, survive with the students, It was a lot of things. And then the concerts was happening everywhere. The Indian musician was very, very busy those days.
Indian classical music is a very special kind of music. It's a old tradition. It's a spiritual music. It's a music which derives influences from various parts of the world. Indian classical music, or Hindustani music as we call it, is actually a fusion music, you could say, between music from India, more traditional older music from India, as well as music from Persia in the Middle East. Actually, the system of Hindustani music or Indian classical music blends elements of Persian music as well as more indigenous Indian music, as you would call it. It's very aware of the science and the effect of sound. And for that purpose, listening to Indian classical music live is a completely different experience than listening to it over recording. The sitar, for example, has how many strings?
20.
20 strings. And the reason that there are so many strings is because of the effect of the sound, the sympathetic strings. So for every one note that's hit, 20 strings resonate.
Yeah, it's a vibrate. Yeah. From the bottom.
So there's a science behind the system. It's an old system, but it's a very complicated and advanced system of music. For that reason, in today's world, it can be a little bit inaccessible for some musicians to begin. The tradition that Roshanji was speaking about practicing 6 or 7 hours a day in the modern world is very difficult to achieve.
I can't imagine a kid doing that, to be honest with you, in the U.S. Western culture.
But that being said, there has to be a method for preserving and promoting this kind of music so that it can continue to be spread in perpetuity. In India, this is taking place. There's a community of younger people who have taken on the music, but here, in America, there's a much smaller.
It's a difference is, here people, as they get 18 years old, so they start working. They just go out, In India, they are depending on their parents. So they have no worried about getting food or money or something. So father says, just practice. Okay?
Yeah, I don't know that that's going to happen without that kind of culture and structure that somebody's going to become a master, put in the work at a young age, if it's not kind of built into the culture, the family structure.
Yeah. Because it's their career. Their career is depending on this, So you have to be serious and your teacher have to be serious, In India, it's different,
The other thing, too, is that even without that level of rigor and intensity around the practice, there's still so much that as a society and as a culture we can do to promote the preservation and expansion of world music and lift that music up on equal footing to the more popular Western music. For example, at universities, offering courses in Indian classical music would be one way. I teach 1 day a week at the university in West African high life music, and that's a way for students to come in and learn about a style of music that's totally different than what they probably listen to on Spotify or on the radio or anything. So when people do experience these other systems of music, their lives become enriched because they have more broader perspective, and it might inspire them. For me, I don't practice 6 or 7 hours a day. I wish I could, but it's not my reality. But, I started to play this music because of the effect that it had on me and the effect that I could feel inside of myself when I listened to the music and when I played the music. It was a feeling of, peace and a feeling of expression and intense creativity that I didn't find through other avenues, through other music. Even jazz music, for example, is heavily improvisational, but it has a different system, a different set of rules, you could say, than the Indian classical music. So I think that there's a way to incorporate this music into our culture in a way that doesn't necessarily require the intensity of the traditional practice, for example, and still gain a lot of the benefits. A lot of people are interested in, kirtan music, yoga music. That's fine. That's one way of approaching it. But when you go back to the source, you find another layer of richness, that has a different kind of effect,
It goes back generations, the sitar, and it was taught through generations like your father. So I'm wondering, do you ever think about your father and your ancestors when you're playing that instrument or anything like that?
In my family, after my father, I'm the one who's playing sitar, But my other brothers or my son, they're playing tablas. So I'm the only person in my house. I'm keeping this tradition of my father, So my brothers, they love playing tablas, and they're very, very good, My son is playing tabla, My father was playing sitar, He was singer too, my father. But none of them, these children are doing this. They're playing tabla, and they're playing very good. So most of them are tabla player. I'm the only sitar player, in my family.
And you've taught many students, but as far as your family goes, it won't be carried on by anybody in your family. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
It's okay. I don't feel, I don't feel mean. But they are in music, It doesn't matter whatever they do, but they are doing music. They are playing classical music. So it doesn't matter to me.
There is not as many people learning it today, so there is a fear or a concern that it's not being passed on enough in general.
Before, our teachers, I'm talking about, 100 years back, We had no problem of because every musician was hired by kings.
Yep.
Every musician was hired by kings, in their palace, to entertain their guest.
Do you know anybody who's played to a king?
My father was, grandfather was. My grandfather.
Wow.
And my father also have seen, because being a child, he was child, so he used to be with my grandfather, so, and my grandfather was very, very strict. He had almost killed his son. He had killed my father because of the music. The temperament of my grandfather was, like that.
He took it very seriously?
You cannot make any mistake if you are my son, like that. My father was like that too, but not like my grandfather. My grandfather had, thrown him in the well because they were performing in front of king.
It's a lot of pressure.
And my father was a kid, And
I had to play in front of the king.
Father,
you don't know anything.
He was on the tabla.
Wow.
With my grandfather. I'll show you.
In front of the king.
King.
India?
In India. Yeah. So my grandfather had a fix. See, we have a concert tonight, They're going to have a lot of guests, kings from other state or something, Big people going to come, so we have to perform there. He was talking to my father. And then they started learning a composition to my father. Okay, learn this composition, we're going to sing that in the evening in front of Maharaja. Maharaja means king. Okay, they went and they sat and they start singing. My father, he forgot the next antra. He just forgot antra. And my grandfather was, sing now, what happened to you? And he just forgot. He could not, remember what was the next line. Then he felt very much insult, my grandfather, And then he came home and he started beating him. And oh my God, my grandmother used to tell me. And other neighbors also. So they took him to, okay, let's go in the jungle. So there was, those days, older days, we had people used to go in the, in desert to walk, That time nobody has a water pump in the house. So you have to go to well to bring the water in the house. He said, okay, let's go that side, And he pushed him in the well.
Wow.
Like that.
Wow.
Like that. So my grandmother and my, my other grandmothers, from my relative, so they used to tell me the story. And my father was also, when he was telling me the story, he was scared, because that's what his father did with him. So he used to say, thank God I'm not like, your grandfather. I'm not behaving like him, the way he had behaved me. But he was strict, but not like, Strict means he said, okay, don't give him food.
Perspective's a powerful thing. Like even if you felt like something was unfair, he didn't push you in a well.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did he
got saved?
Get out? Yeah, get saved.
Yeah, so my how you call this, older brother of my father, uncle, old, very old than him. Everybody knew my grandfather's nature, So, they said there's going to be something today because he's so angry, and he came back home. And the mother was asking, where's my son? Where's my son? And the people were starting shouting, they were running. Oh, they call my grandfather Ustad. So they say Ustaba, Bab. Oh, Ustaba have done these things to his son and this and this. And the people from the village, they ran away to the well. And my uncle, he just jumped in the water.
Wow.
And he saved.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
The last time when my father moved from Holland to India because he got a stroke, At the age of 70 or 80, he was very much anxious about to see his place. That place where his childhood was, just to see the place. The old people, and all this, childhood friend, music school. So I made a, contract. I didn't know anybody. I, found out one of the musicians from the same place. Then I requested him, my father want to go there and this, in his house and that. Then I met so many people. I went to that palace too. I saw that, Then he took me to that place. Where was that? Well.
Wow.
Oh my, I didn't know that, I have never seen because I was not born at that time. So he remembered that,
Yeah.
So he said, go there. There's the place.